My parents cut me off to support my sister's lifestyle while expecting me to sacrifice everything, so I moved out permanently, succeeded alone, and now they're pleading. I'm a 26-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one in a family that treated my younger sister, Lily, like she was born to be worshipped. That isn't an exaggeration. My entire childhood felt like one long reminder that her comfort mattered more than my existence. I didn't fully understand it at the time, but looking back, the pattern was there from the beginning, woven into every rule, every expectation, every quiet dismissal of what I needed. I started working small jobs at 14, sweeping at a corner store, mowing lawns, shelving books at the library, because my parents insisted I should learn the value of contributing. Meanwhile, Lily was told to focus on enjoying her teenage years, as if joy was a privilege I never earned. I remember standing in the kitchen once, wiping sweat off my forehead after a shift, when my mom smiled at me and said, "Good boys grow up responsible," right before handing Lily money for a mall trip. She didn't thank me. She never did. They always praised me for being mature, but that praise never came with warmth or support. It felt more like a justification, an excuse for why they could rely on me without giving anything back. Lily would get new clothes, new gadgets, spontaneous vacations, while I was told to give up karate, then guitar lessons, then weekend outings with friends because we can't afford extra things right now. The phrase became a family anthem, sung only when it concerned me. Somewhere along the line, I internalized the idea that my needs mattered less. I told myself it was temporary, that once we were older, everything would even out. That maybe my parents would see me as someone worth investing in, not just someone they could lean on. But deep down, something already felt wrong. And Lily's entitlement, which seemed harmless when we were kids, was only beginning to show its true shape, a shape that would eventually push me out of my own family entirely. I'm still not sure when the sacrifices stopped feeling temporary and started feeling like a trap, but by the time I reached college, it was already too late. While other students talked about parents helping with tuition or buying dorm essentials, I was working double shifts just to afford books. My parents insisted it built character, even as they fully funded Lily's extracurriculars, makeup classes, and even a summer program in another country because she deserves opportunities. Every time I walked past her room and saw a new ring light or designer haul, something inside me twisted. I still remember confronting my dad once, asking why I had to take out loans while they paid everything for Lily. He didn't even look up from the newspaper when he said, "You're stronger. You'll figure it out." Meanwhile, Lily laughed from across the room and said, "Try not to be jealous, okay," as if the years of imbalance were a joke. And my mom just sighed like I was the problem for mentioning it at all. To keep up with school, I skipped meals, took online gigs, and slept in short bursts between classes and work. I told myself it was fine, that this phase was building my future, but the truth was uglier. I was being drained dry so Lily could live the lifestyle my parents fantasized about. They even started talking about pulling more from family savings for her new lifestyle brand, acting like it was a noble cause. I remember overhearing my mom say, "He'll understand. He always does," and feeling something inside me crack. It became painfully clear my family didn't see my sacrifices as love, they saw them as obligation. And the more they expected, the more I realized how deeply they believed Lily was the only one worth investing in. But I had no idea things were about to escalate far beyond money, into a decision that would make me question whether I even belonged in that house at all. I think the real breaking point, the moment I realized my parents didn't just prioritize Lily but genuinely saw me as secondary, came during what should have been an ordinary dinner. I was juggling 2 jobs at that point, exhausted, barely holding myself together, when my mom casually said, "We were thinking, maybe you could contribute your savings to help Lily launch her influencer career." She said it the same way someone might ask you to pass the salt. No hesitation. No consideration. Just expectation. I remember dropping my fork and staring at them. My savings? For what exactly? My dad didn't flinch. He just said, "Come on, son. Don't be selfish. Lily needs a push to get started." Lily chimed in with that entitled smile she'd perfected over the years. "Yeah, you should support me for once. It'll pay off for the whole family." The way she said it, like she was granting me the honor of sacrificing for her, made my chest burn. When I said no, they all froze like I'd committed some kind of crime. My mom whispered, "Why are you being difficult?" and my dad shook his head as if I'd disappointed him on a moral level. "She has potential," he repeated, dismissing everything I'd worked for. I felt like a stranger at my own table, like my existence was only valued when it benefited Lily. The days that followed were worse. Cold shoulders. Snide comments. My mother muttering about ungrateful children. Lily posting cryptic online stories about people who don't want to see you shine. It was like my single act of self-preservation triggered a full family meltdown. And underneath all of their reactions, a terrifying truth settled in my mind: they had already made decisions involving my money long before they asked. That sinking feeling in my stomach wouldn't go away, because deep down, I knew this wasn't the worst of it. Something bigger was coming, something they hadn't told me yet. I remember the exact moment everything tilted, like the floor beneath me shifted and refused to steady again. I had just come home from a brutal shift, sweat still clinging to my shirt, my backpack digging into my shoulder, when my parents called me into the living room with the kind of serious faces they usually reserved for Lily's emergencies. My mom folded her hands and said, "We need to talk about finances," which was already a red flag, because in our house, finances always meant my finances, never hers or Lily's. But I sat down anyway, thinking maybe they finally realized how unfair things had gotten. Instead, my dad cleared his throat and announced, "We're cutting off support for your tuition, for now. We need to redirect our resources toward Lily's future." Just like that. No apology. No warmth. No acknowledgement that I was barely staying afloat. I felt the blood drain from my face. "You're, what?" I asked, my voice barely holding steady. Lily didn't even pretend to feel bad, she just smirked and crossed her arms like she'd been waiting for the reveal. My mom jumped in quickly, saying, "Don't make this difficult. You're smart. You'll manage." But Lily's opportunities are time-sensitive. Hearing her talk about my life like it was an afterthought made my stomach twist. The worst part wasn't even that they were cutting me off. It was realizing they'd already been using portions of my college fund to cover Lily's expenses, something my dad confirmed with a careless, "We thought you wouldn't mind. It's all family money anyway." Family money. The money I worked for. The money I desperately needed. I walked out of that room numb, feeling something inside me fracture in a way I didn't know could be fixed. And even as I tried to process the betrayal, I had no idea they were about to make a demand so outrageous it would push me past my breaking point. I wish I could say the tuition betrayal was the worst of it, but the truth is, my parents hadn't even reached the part that would actually break me. 2 days after that conversation, my mom knocked on my door with this rehearsed softness, like she was about to ask me for a harmless favor. I was sitting at my tiny desk, trying to figure out how many extra shifts I could take before collapsing, when she said, "We need your room." At first, I thought I misheard her. My room? The one place in the house that actually felt like mine? She stepped inside and repeated, "Lily needs a space for her filming studio. The lighting in here is perfect." I stared at her, genuinely speechless. "So, where exactly am I supposed to sleep?" "In the basement for now," she said, waving her hand like it was nothing. "Or maybe ask one of your friends if you can stay with them for a bit. You're barely here anyway." The casualness of it cut deeper than if she'd screamed it at me. When I refused, everything turned ugly fast. My dad accused me of being resentful and dramatic, insisting that this was a small sacrifice for Lily's dreams. Lily leaned against the doorway, scrolling her phone, barely paying attention as she said, "Can you stop making this about you? This is literally why you don't go viral, you never think big." I felt heat crawl up my neck, my chest tightening in disbelief. They weren't asking me, they were telling me. They had already moved boxes into the hallway. It wasn't just a room anymore. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't a son. They saw me as an obstacle, a piece of furniture they could relocate when it suited them. I remember standing there, surrounded by everything I owned, realizing something devastating. Staying in this house meant accepting that I didn't matter. And in that moment, a quiet resolve began forming in my chest, something that would soon change everything. I don't know what finally snapped inside me, but the moment Lily's boxes started appearing outside my door, something inside my chest just went quiet. Not loud anger, not dramatic rage, just silence, the kind that comes when you finally see a truth clearly for the first time. I looked around my shrinking room, at the posters I never got to hang, the books I never had time to read, the bed that had become a place I crashed rather than rested, and I thought, if I stay, I'll disappear. That realization settled over me like a cold, suffocating blanket. And once it did, everything that came next felt inevitable. That night, while everyone slept, I packed my essentials into 2 bags, clothes, my laptop, a few books, and a photo of me at age 10, back when I still believed this house was home. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, more like relief fighting its way out of my body for the first time. As I zipped my bag, I heard my dad's voice from earlier echo in my head, "You're barely here anyway." Maybe he didn't mean it the way it sounded, or maybe he meant it exactly. I slipped out quietly, the house dark except for the faint glow from Lily's newly claimed studio, ring lights still plugged in like a symbol of everything I wasn't. The air outside was cold enough to sting, but it felt cleaner than anything I'd breathed in years. I walked 3 blocks to my friend Jason's place, texting him only, "Can I crash for a bit?" He opened the door in seconds, looked at my bags, and said, "Whatever happened, you're not going back there tonight." His words were the first warmth I'd felt all week. The twist came the next morning. My academic advisor emailed me after noticing a drop in my attendance and asked if I could meet urgently. I almost ignored it, but something told me to go. I had no idea that conversation would open a door my parents never wanted me to find. Walking into my advisor's office the next morning, I felt like a ghost, drained, hollow, carrying the weight of everything I'd left behind. She took one look at me and said, "You're not okay," and something in me finally cracked. I told her everything, not in dramatic detail, but enough for her to understand why I'd been missing classes and barely functioning. She listened without interrupting once, and when I finished, she leaned forward and said, "You don't deserve that. Let me help you." Those 4 words hit harder than anything my parents had said to me in years. By the end of the meeting, she had arranged emergency housing options, helped me apply for a scholarship, and even connected me with a better-paying on-campus job. It felt unreal, like someone had finally turned toward me after years of being invisible. Jason helped me move into a tiny shared apartment, nothing fancy, but the moment I set my bag down, I felt a strange sense of ownership I'd never felt in my parents' house. The air smelled like old paint and someone's burnt cooking, but to me, it smelled like possibility. Work became my anchor. My new boss noticed how quickly I picked things up and started giving me more responsibility. "You've got drive," he said one evening while I wiped down the counters. "People like you go far." Hearing that from a stranger felt more validating than a lifetime of forced "we're proud of you" speeches from my parents. As the weeks passed, I built a routine, classes in the afternoon, work in the evenings, study sessions at night. Exhausting, yes, but it was my exhaustion, earned on my terms. I even started therapy through campus resources, peeling back layers of guilt and conditioning I didn't know had names. My parents barely reached out, except for the occasional message asking why I was avoiding family. Lily didn't bother at all. But life was shifting in a way none of us expected. Because while I was rebuilding myself day by day, Lily's carefully curated world was beginning to crumble. I didn't realize how fast Lily's world was unraveling until my phone buzzed one night with 3 missed calls from my mom, something she hadn't done since I left. At first, I ignored them, assuming it was another guilt trip, another attempt to drag me back into the role of family fixer. But then a 4th call came in, followed immediately by a text that read, "We need to talk about Lily. It's serious." My stomach tightened, not out of concern, but out of a familiar dread I thought I'd finally escaped. Still, curiosity got the better of me. When I finally picked up, my mom's voice was trembling. Her brand, "Everything fell apart," she said. like it was a national tragedy. She explained how Lily's lifestyle brand had flopped after people online exposed her fake sponsorships and bought followers. Apparently, someone leaked screenshots of her bragging about manipulating her audience, and overnight, she went from aspiring influencer to a joke. My dad took the phone next, sounding angry, not at Lily, but at me. If you hadn't abandoned us, we could have supported her properly. This wouldn't have happened. Hearing him twist their failures into my fault nearly made me laugh. I asked, "What do you want from me?" Silence. Then my mom whispered, "Come home. Help us get back on our feet. We can work together as a family." Family. That word had never felt so empty. Jason walked into the room as I listened, seeing the expression on my face. "Is it them again?" he asked. I nodded, and he shook his head slowly. "Don't let them drag you back into hell," he said quietly. His voice grounded me. My parents kept talking about debts, threats from brands Lily lied to, bills piling up. They sounded desperate now, drowning in the consequences of choices they once justified with pride. And for the first time, I realized something chilling. Their rock bottom wasn't just financial. It was the moment they realized I wasn't coming to save them this time. By the time Lily's world had collapsed, mine was finally beginning to take shape, quietly, steadily, without the constant weight of someone else's expectations dragging me down. I had settled into my new apartment, picked up extra hours at work, and was finally starting to see numbers in my bank account that didn't make my chest tighten. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was building something. And the strangest part was realizing how natural success felt once no one was siphoning my energy for their own dreams. A few months in, my boss pulled me aside after a shift. "You ever think about moving up?" he asked. I blinked at him, unsure if he was joking. "You work harder than half my full-timers," he said. "I'd be stupid not to invest in you." That word, invest, hit me in a place I didn't know was still sore. With the promotion came more stability, better hours, and a sense of pride I had never associated with myself before. I bought my first car, a used Toyota with peeling paint, but the feeling of sitting in a vehicle that was mine was indescribable. I even upgraded to a slightly better apartment with sunlight that spilled in through the windows in the mornings, something I'd never realized mattered to me until then. And that's when the messages from home started to change. My mom texted, "We heard you got a promotion." "That's good." My dad followed later with, "Proud of you, son." The first proud I'd heard in years. But then came the real reason for their sudden warmth. "We're struggling. If you could help with some of Lily's debts, it would mean a lot." There it was, the familiar hook beneath the compliment. Lily even messaged me directly, pretending we'd always been close. "Hey, I'm really happy you're doing well," she wrote. "Maybe you could spot me some money? Just until things pick up again." I didn't respond. As my life grew brighter, theirs grew darker, and for the first time, they couldn't pull me into the shadows with them. But their desperation was only getting started. And I knew a confrontation was inevitable. I agreed to meet them only because I wanted closure, not reconciliation, not forgiveness, just the chance to say out loud what had been rotting inside me for years. We met at a small cafe near my new apartment, a place filled with warm light, clinking mugs, and the hum of people who had no idea my entire family history was about to crack open in the middle of it. My mom waved me over with this desperate smile, the kind she used to give Lily after a failed audition. My dad looked older than I remembered, tired in a way that didn't inspire sympathy, just clarity. Lily sat with her arms crossed, eyes swollen from crying, but even now she carried an air of entitlement, like the world owed her softness. Before I even sat down, my dad started. "We need you home," he said firmly, like a command. My mom added, "We made mistakes, but we're family. Don't punish us like this." I felt the words wash over me, familiar and heavy, but they didn't sink in this time. "I'm not punishing anyone," I said quietly. "I'm protecting myself." Lily leaned forward, voice trembling with anger. "You abandoned us. You left when I needed you." I stared at her for a long moment. I left when you took everything. The table went silent. I told them everything they had refused to see, every sacrifice, every dismissal, every time my needs were treated like inconveniences. My voice didn't shake. For once, it felt like mine. My mom tried to interrupt, but I held up a hand. No. You don't get to rewrite this. Not anymore. My dad's jaw tightened, like he was realizing he no longer had power over me. Finally, Lily snapped, "You owe us. Families help each other." I stood up, grabbed my coat, and said, "I did help. 4 years. And all it ever did was break me. I don't owe you another piece." Her mouth fell open, mid-argument, as I pushed in my chair and walked out. But as I reached the door, I could feel it. This wasn't the end of their attempts to pull me back. Walking out of that cafe felt like walking out of a cage I never realized had been locked from the inside. The cold air outside hit my face, sharp and clean, like the world was finally wide open instead of pressed against my throat. For the first time in my life, I wasn't someone's safety net, someone's emotional punching bag, someone's backup plan. I was just me. And as terrifying as that freedom felt, it also came with a quiet, unfamiliar peace that settled in my chest like something sacred. I didn't look back at the cafe window. I didn't need to anymore. The weeks that followed were healing. Not magically, not instantly, but slowly, like stepping into sunlight after years of fluorescent shadows. I threw myself into work, and my boss pulled me aside again to say, "You've grown a lot. Keep going." Those words stayed with me longer than any apology my family tried to send. I started forming healthy friendships, people who didn't see me as a resource, but as a person. Some nights, I'd sit by my apartment window, watching traffic blur beneath the streetlights, feeling something I hadn't felt since childhood: safety. Therapy helped me untangle the knots my parents had tied inside me. My therapist said, "You learn to survive by shrinking," and for the first time, I understood how deeply that shrinking had shaped every part of my life. But I was expanding now, slowly, deliberately. Meanwhile, my parents' lives kept spiraling. Debt collectors. Brand complaints. Lily's social media reputation tanked so badly she locked her accounts. And yet, they still reached out. Messages dripping with half apologies, veiled desperation, and thinly disguised pleas for help. "We miss you. Family shouldn't stay divided. You're abandoning us when we need you most." I didn't block them. I didn't answer either. Not out of spite, but because replying felt like stepping onto a trapdoor I'd finally learned to avoid. But peace never lasts untouched. And the final message they sent forced me to make a decision that would define everything moving forward. The message that forced my hand came early on a Sunday morning, right as I was making coffee in the quiet of my apartment. My phone buzzed once, then again, 3 texts from my mom followed by a missed call from my dad and a long paragraph from Lily. For a moment, I considered ignoring it all like I'd been doing for months. But something in the tone of the preview, this mix of desperation and entitlement, made me open it. My mom had written, "We need you to come home. Lily's situation is worse. We can't handle this anymore. Please." My dad wrote, "We made mistakes, but we're still your parents. You have to step up now." And Lily, of course, sent the one that twisted the knife, "If you ever loved me, prove it. Help us." I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel guilt. I just felt tired, like I'd finally reached the end of a very long, painful chapter. I typed out one message. Not cruel. Not emotional. Just the truth. I'm not coming back. I wish you all well, but I'm choosing my own life now. My hand hovered for a second, but not because I doubted myself, because I knew this was the first time I had ever chosen myself over them. Then I hit send. Within seconds, the responses flooded in, my mom begging, my dad accusing, Lily exploding into insults and then backpedaling into apologies. I put my phone face down on the counter and let their messages vibrate into silence. For once, their chaos wasn't mine to manage. That afternoon, I took a long walk through the city, breathing in the cold air, feeling strangely light. I realized I wasn't grieving anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't waiting for their validation or apology. I was free. And the irony wasn't lost on me. They spent years expecting me to sacrifice everything for them. But in the end, the one thing they couldn't afford was losing me. And I finally understood that walking away was the only power I ever needed.